The Opinion with Michael J. I'm going to go over what I think is very, very important for people to understand. Today is May the 1st, 2025. We had an election on April 28, 2025. And already we're seeing pushback from actually conservative MPs, YouTube podcasters with a partisan conservative slant. And understand this election was just over. We have hardly settled in to get our bearings, get our feet planted on the ground, figure out what direction and how we're going to go in that direction. Nonetheless, you have to understand the election was a strong message to everybody, and it was really close. It was a pushback against the tyranny of the likes of Trump and other fascist leaders and other fascist tendencies and authoritarianism in their manner of speech. And that's important to understand. Even with the examples of the recent events of the oligarchy system in the United States, the collapse of democracy in the United States, as well as rule of law. And we're seeing rule of law being actually challenged right now as at today due to another conservative government, Doug Ford. And this is a dangerous road to go, and he just doesn't get it. Nonetheless, let's get back onto the topic. This was an election that was too close for comfort, and as far as authoritarianism taking hold of the country of Canada. Now, to give you an example, and this is where everybody seems to be missing the mark, because the perfect example to impress upon you to make my point is Pierre Poliev had and held a riding for 20 years. This election, he was resoundingly defeated by over 4,000 votes. So the message that he was sending during the whole time is a message very similar to Trump, and you'll say, no, it's not. Don't try to make MAGA South Maple MAGA North. Well, there's three things you have to understand with Pierre Poliev's message and the conservative message overall. Tax cuts, immigration, and civil service cuts. Those are the things that the Trump administration have focused on, which is putting that country into a recession. And if it puts that country into a recession, it's going to do likewise to Canada. So let's be clear about that. Now, the Trump-Poliev plan goes back to the 1800s and the early 1900s, 1930s. So this is what you have to understand. And so next, we're going to look at Financial Post. Now, the Financial Post is owned by Post Media, which is owned by an American hedge fund, which pushes all its publications to push a conservative viewpoint. Nonetheless, we have to keep an open mind. Let's look at some of the comments. Here's an important. Look at all these comments and feel that I am on an American site. I'm disappointed by these comments. I thought Canadians were more educated than this. The entire world has inflation, food, and tax increase since we had a worldwide terrible pandemic just a few years ago. Economies were devastated for years and many jobs lost forever. Canada came out #1 in the world. However, Canada is rated as one of the most stable countries in the world, higher than America, and rated as one of the happiest countries with the lowest debt of the G7 countries. And some say Canada is the richest country in the world due to its natural resources. Is everything perfect? No. So, also mention a few other things. Said Trudeau did a great job with the pandemic. Got seniors more benefits, young families $10 Canadian daycare, and that pipeline finished. I guess that's the TMX pipeline. Canada got a kick in the butt from an orange Fuhrer, but that's just what we needed. If you want to whine, head south to the fascist state, full of violence, poverty, no social net. Time to stop whining and get to work. And the response, I hope you're right, could not have written it better. Agreed, people seem to forget COVID and are totally ignorant of the effects on worldwide economies and don't appreciate what they have till they lose it. I'm not quite sure why you're getting Canada coming out of the past 5 years as #1. Canadian economy has been one of the weakest in OECD post-pandemic. Canadian house price to income ratio is again one of the worst in the world. There practically hasn't been any real increase in productivity in the past 20 years. Canada and our GDP per capita. You know, there are some valid points there, but that's not the bigger picture. But there are valid points. But I'm going to tell you, you're not going to solve those valid points by tax cuts, cutting immigration, and cutting civil service. Just won't do it. It's putting the United States into a friggin' recession, possible depression, depending on which way they're going to go, and it's affecting the worldwide economy. Let's be realistic. Okay, so Canadians are smart, really pocket smart, by choosing a real fiscal expert. This plan is strong. Some folks here still believe that Pierre Poliev is still going to sit in the House of Commons. I don't know if he can be constructive in debate in the House of Commons. You know, just the way he looks at things and the way he's behaved in the past. Ottawa, his riding, rebuked him and resoundingly rebuked him. And you might say, well, there was 91 candidates, but that affected the winner also. So that's just your ego pushing back. Let that go. I would be terrified heading into this with Poilievre at the wheel. What will Liberals do to help Canadians go into food banks, homeless, tent cities, live in drug addiction, drug trafficking, car thefts, gun crimes, home invasions, cost of illegal and over-immigration costing us millions, weak borders, weak military, and billions needed to pay interest on our debt. Everything you said sounds so rosy, but you never mentioned any of these major issues Canadians are facing. And then another guy says, the Liberal answer to your question is to continue what they've been doing for the past 9 years. Nothing effective and maybe blame Trump. Another guy says, instead of being hyper-partisan or a bot, how about you give Carney a chance to put his plan in place? Canada's fortunate to have world-renowned economists. And you think this is a federal issue? Clueless and ignorant. And that's a really good point, because all those issues that were pointed out here, gun crimes, home invasions, illegal over-immigration, well, the over-immigration, that's just a different thing, but costs of illegal and over-immigration. We don't allow illegal immigration. Nobody does. So that's a false narrative right there. But home invasions, gun crimes, car thefts, drug trafficking, and drug addictions, those are provincial factors at play. And this is what has been melded, conflated, from data and facts into an opinion. And that's what Pierre Poliev was spewing out. It's a provincial factor, and that was his major thing, this, that, and this. That's provincial. And here, this person states it right here succinctly. These responsibilities fall firmly under the province. Homelessness, addiction, healthcare, housing, and policing are not managed by Ottawa. They're controlled by your provincial government. The federal level provides funding, but provinces deliver the services. Stop blaming Ottawa alone. Demand real action. Demand real action. Action with a capital ACTION from your province now. And that's correct. That's probably the best stated. Now here another guy says, same as PC said they would do, PPMC are close in what they proposed. Now if you look at it closely, they're very, very different. And then when Pierre Poliev finally put his costed platform out there, you'll find that he misled the people on how the tax cuts were going to work. A lot of it was back-end loaded to the fourth year of the term. Here's another guy who says, I think Trump had more to do with it than Carney's banking resume. His resume is good on paper, terrible in the real world. Well, that's a personal opinion. You're allowed that. You can't spend your way out of debt. Who says you can't? Is that a construct you've created? Where the real problem is with the debt is the private debt, and that's doled out by the banks. Whenever government actually reduces the money supply, private lending, which is your banks, increase it, and that's where the huge problem comes into play. That's what created the American 2008 financial crisis. So you just got to get yourself educated on how money works in the system and within a sovereign nation. So here's another guy that just doesn't get it. Reckless federal spending definitely contributed to all those issues. And many more, including immigration failures. Immigration failure was the fact that we let too high a level in a short period of time. And the macroeconomic factors, because of the pandemic, wouldn't allow that to assimilate in a more positive way. We'll catch up to it, but that's the real issue. So failures, massive debt, or, debt servicing is 2.5% of the overall debt. So if it's 2.5%, it's not that bad, so get over it. And then you get back into this catch and release policies for criminals. A lot of the issue with that, it's not a catch and release by the Liberals. You just don't get how it's written. And secondly, the province has to provide the support for the courts in order to function efficiently. And that's where the real problem is. And that's why you had a federal Supreme Court of Canada rule, and then Pierre Poliev, his answer is to use the notwithstanding clause. That's not how you solve these kind of issues. It's got to go back to the provinces, and they got to figure out how to make their system more efficient and expedient so the proper due service and Charter of Rights and Freedoms are all respected. And it's not a hard thing to figure out. But you get into slogans and platitudes, and you start believing what doesn't serve anybody. And that's the unfortunate factor at play here. So, to the Conservatives here, do you see anything hopeful and optimistic in yours or Canada's future, regardless of who is in power? Stop and think, please. The campaign is over. Wish yourselves and the country you say you love well. That's well put. Another one said, I'm not a conservative, but I would think there should be some excitement for the Kitimat LNG port coming online early this summer, opening up world markets for natural gas. Now, Kitimat LNG, you got to understand, we're in a recession. Justin Trudeau got voted in November 2015. December 2016 was the start of the Kitimat LNG project. And it's only up till just recently that it's being tested and coming online. These pipelines take a long time to get up and running. And to say it's because of environment and blame it on Bill C-69 and all these other bills, that's a false narrative. Those bills are there to protect the environment, the ground you walk on, and the water you drink. And this is what you're forgetting. Just for a quick buck, you're going to contaminate the ground, contaminate the water. You eat from the ground. You drink water from the ground. And you're forgetting about how important that is. And that's all those bills are there for. The Kitimat project showed it can be done even with those factors at play. So anybody that's telling you differently, they just want to cut corners. And you know what happens when you cut corners. So, okay, we're not going to go any more of that. Let's understand one thing here. And this is a Financial Post. It has a conservative slant. And this is 1 day ago. And Larissa Harrapin, that's her name? Yeah, Larissa Harrapin. So Tony Stillo, this is the gentleman here off to the right, Director of Canada Economics of Oxford Economics, talks with Financial Post, Larissa Harrapin. Take it away, kids.
Hi, Tony. Canadians voted the Liberal Party in for a fourth consecutive term, a minority government, albeit. We recently got a glimpse of what those economic plans might look like based on the party's costed platform. Does anything change here when you take a look at that economic forecast going forward?
Absolutely. We're basically in the midst of buffets from major policy moves. You've got the trade war that Trump has initiated from the U.S., our retaliation, and now we have a major platform by the Liberal government that's going to basically change the prospects for the economy.
Let's get into the elements that'll make up those prospects. You've got proposed tax cuts, and you've got some proposed new spending.
Yeah, when we tallied it up, we looked at the net additional fiscal support, both from higher spending and lower taxes. And it amounts to $77 billion now tally over the next 4 years. And that's largely going to be on the spending side. There's a number of the personal income tax cuts and corporate tax cuts, but it's mostly on the spending side. And that, if you look at it as a share of the economy last year, it's about 2.5% of the economy, spread over 4 years, mind you, but a pretty significant amount of stimulus.
Let's just take that spending apart. There is defense spending that'll get us to that 2% target, infrastructure spending on highways and ports, and new housing.
Yes, and I think that what the Liberal platform is looking to do is boost the economy at the same time as building up our capacity, our potential, and those sort of bottlenecks that we've seen in the country for internal trade, even our exports for the rest of the world. So these are all things that need to be done. Now, the Conservative government had more of a let the private sector do it. This is more the government taking the lead. But we will see that actually hitting the economy. We will see the tax cuts giving a little more money into the pockets of households. The corporate tax cuts are mainly, they backed off on the capital gains inclusion rate increase that was planned before, but there's something for basically broad swaths of the economy. And we think, if you go down to the forecast, which I'm sure is what your next question is going to be, we still think there's a recession coming from the trade war, but this is going to buffer but not eliminate it. We don't think it's going to fully offset the downturn in the economy.
You mentioned it won't fully offset a downturn in the economy. What is the expectation then for the next few quarters?
Well, I think it's going to be tough to offset what happens in Q2. I mean, the government just got elected yesterday. They're going to have a budget. Actually, in that vein, they're going to have support by either the NDP or the Bloc. That could alter the sort of priorities that the government, the Liberal government, has put in their platform. And we expect the second quarter to largely play out as we expect. It's going to probably contract. But as we move through the rest of the year and into next year, some of the support from the government side should start to buoy the economy. That being said, we still expect a contraction through the next 3 quarters, probably lasting shorter and less deep than we had forecast without the fiscal measures. Now, I'll add one other thing that I'm anticipating where you're heading, I think. What does this mean for the Bank of Canada? We've been always of the view that they're fighting a really difficult battle on 2 fronts, both higher inflation from the tariffs and the downturn in the economy, and they were going to be very pragmatic and kind of hold rates where they are today in a kind of neutral territory. And this actually lends more credence to that because the federal government, with the fiscal policy measures they're talking about, is going to do more of the heavy lifting.
New spending equals bigger deficits.
That's right.
How concerned should we be about this?
Well, there's always a concern when we're spending beyond our means. I think at this point, with the sort of challenges we face, it's probably appropriate to use that dry powder on the fiscal side. Canada, compared to most other advanced economies, has been in a much better position to add stimulus if needed. And here, I think we do need some.
Let's talk about the economic policy that's going to get business moving. How do you incentivize investment, productivity?
Well, one of them was that I failed to mention earlier is the one they talked about for incentivizing CapEx that was in the fall economic statement. And that's been resurrected on their platform. That is a positive move. It is going to have firms allowed them to depreciate their capital investments that much quicker, and probably be a welcome thing that they can use to move forward and boost investment, which is one of the areas that when we talk about recession in Canada, we think about those sort of imbalances, those underlying weaknesses, and one of them has been really weak private investment. And today, we're actually not just seeing weak investment that's been pervasive in Canada for some time, but the uncertainty alone from the tariffs and the trade war is really paralyzing firms.
Tony, we may be getting ahead of ourselves here, but thoughts on what a budget might look like?
Well, I would anticipate it'd be largely what you've seen, but I think that since the Liberal government will need support from either the NDP or the Bloc, they have, in their platforms, had less fiscal stimulus, but they had the more short-term focus and on income support for affected workers and firms. So we might see the Liberal government reprioritize some of their original plans on long-term capital investment towards a more shorter-term support for incoming workers, for households and workers, which will actually help the economy in the near term. So that's what I anticipate. But, they're going to have to make these decisions behind closed doors with the different parties. But the thing is, I think that we will see some strong support for the economy in the upcoming budget.
Well, there you go, folks. That's a good start. Now understand that the affordability issue is not going to be fixed by clicking your fingers. The housing issue is not going to be clicked or fixed with a click instantly either. But what you have just witnessed is a professional giving an opinion about what is a platform to get us going. So, this is going to take some time. Doesn't matter who is in government, but I'm going to tell you something else. If you're focusing on tax cuts, cutting immigration, civil service cuts, you've seen the result in the United States of America. It's caused negative growth. It's caused a recession. It's creating the issue here in Canada. So we got to move forward, folks. Let that stuff go. Questions, comments, throw in chat. And once again, I'd like you thank you very much for watching. Love and peace to everyone. Stay safe. Ciao for now.